There's nothing more motivated than a corporation that thinks it's leaving money on the table. They are coming after the internet, hoping to destroy the very thing that makes it such an important tool for independent artists and entrepreneurs. It's freedom and openness. I know that many of you have heard people talk about net neutrality before. You might have heard me say that it's the First Amendment issue of our time, and it is. And you might already be on board with our fight to save it. But I want to take just a moment to explain it, because part of the strategy being used by people who want to destroy net neutrality is to confuse Americans about what the term even means. Net neutrality means that content, a web page, an email, a download, moves over the internet freely and moves at the same speed no matter what it is or who owns it. So an email from President Obama and an email from your Tea Partier uncle come in at the same speed. You can buy a song from an indie band just as quickly as you can buy a song from a band on a major label. And if you want to start a website for your small business, your customers can have their order processed just as easily with you as they could if they were buying from a multinational conglomerate. We take this basic fairness, this equality, this, shall we say, neutrality for granted, because that's how it's always been. The internet is democratic, not capital D democratic, although for that annoying uncle of yours who insists the government has never created a job, the internet was developed by the government at public expense. What I mean is that the internet is small d democratic. Everyone has the same say. If you want to be heard above other people, if you want your argument to prevail or your song to be popular or your product to sell, the only way to do it is have a better argument or a catchier song or a more useful product. I think this is a good thing. I think most people think this is a good thing. And that's why your Tea Partier uncle might hear that Al Franken is fighting for net neutrality and say something like, "Leave the internet alone." Only here would that get a laugh. Oh, that was hilarious. And that's exactly what I want, what we want. We have net neutrality right now, and we don't want to lose it. That's all. The fight for net neutrality isn't about improving the internet. It's not about changing the internet at all. It's about ensuring that it stays just the way it is. It's the big corporations who now own the physical infrastructure that makes the internet work, the pipes through which the content is distributed, the tubes, if you will, who want to change the internet by ending net neutrality. Now, let me say something about big corporations. They're not inherently evil, not at all. I notice that some of them have even sponsored this year's South by Southwest, which is very hip of them. But corporations have a contractual duty, a legal obligations to their shareholders to make as much money as they can. And the big telecom companies make lots and lots of money off their ownership of the internet, but they figured out a way to make more. It's called paid prioritization. Telecom companies want to create a high-speed lane for corporations that can pay for it. As the chief technology officer for Bell South pointed out, I can buy a coach standby ticket or a first-class ticket. I can get 2-day air or 6-day ground. This would make these corporations gatekeepers of the internet, with the power to decide what content can get to its intended audience in the high-speed lane and what content gets stuck in traffic, depending on what makes the most money for their shareholders. For American consumers, this, of course, would be bad news. We'll have a lot fewer viewpoints represented online, not just creative viewpoints, but maybe even ideological and political viewpoints. Do you think Comcast would refrain from making it harder for people to watch this speech online if they could do so legally? And even if the telecoms can't force Americans to like their preferred content, they can make it very difficult and very expensive for Americans to access the content they do prefer. Maybe you don't care for whatever Verizon is peddling on VCast, so you can go to load up a YouTube video of something else. But if Verizon selectively throttles bandwidth, as we've seen reports indicating that they might, that video might load slower and at a lower resolution. How long are you going to put up with that before you turn back to the pristine quality and speedy downloads that you can have through VCast? Maybe you don't want to watch the NBC Universal content that Comcast is offering through its streaming service. The movie you want to see is on Netflix instant streaming platform, but now Comcast wants to impose a new fee on Netflix, making it more expensive for them to offer competition to Comcast's streaming service. Obviously, this cost could be passed on to you in the form of higher prices on Netflix subscriptions. But the real end game for Comcast is to put Netflix out of business entirely, leaving you with no choice except Comcast programming. Meanwhile, now that Comcast has bought NBC, it won't be long before Verizon or AT&T start thinking about buying ABC or DirecTV, creating a few enormous media conglomerates with bigger and bigger footprints over the delivery of content. If they're able to implement what they call managed services, you might have to buy both broadband access and a cable package to get either. And just as you pay extra to get HBO or Showtime on your cable package, we've seen reports that telecom companies might consider dividing the internet into tiers the same way. You'd have to pay a base fee for a few sites and more if you want to be able to get to others. If these companies aren't already doing these things now, rest assured, this is in their plans. In the end, the American people will end up paying a lot more for worse service and less content. They'll hear from a lot fewer viewpoints. They'll have a lot less freedom to choose what they want to see and hear and do online.